You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hey everyone! I am so excited to have another overseas guest, and this guest is so sweet and lovely. Her energy is just absolutely beautiful, and I'm so excited to welcome today Cari.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherisse. I'm so glad to be here with you. Your energy is just so full of light as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'd love for you to tell the listeners what it is that you do.
For sure. Similar to you in wanting to empower and lift up women, girls and women, I work with all genders, but my focus in coaching is around self-kindness. So helping people they're such good people, but they don't feel good inside their own minds. And it's just the
Mm,
biggest tragedy to me. Like that should not be how things are. So, a lot of the work I do as a professional coach is to help people get past those blockages to them being able to be their full self. And it changes everything. I know you know that too.
absolutely that. And I think I mean, I'm guessing from your clientele and your experience that I feel like for me being an overachiever that's so coded into my DNA, I didn't realize how unkind I'd been to myself my whole life until I
Mhm.
embarked on my healing journey. And I'm pretty sure you see that all the time, don't you, with your clients?
Yes. Yes, it's interesting. The overachievers, yeah, folks like yourself, nobody would know, right?
Mm,
Everybody thinks you're like full of confidence and you're just go, go, go and working towards your goals, but really, there's a war going on inside. And it's
absolutely.
happening, yeah, it's like right below the surface of consciousness. So you don't even know the war is happening, but you're feeling the effects of it every minute of every day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that terminology you just used there about the war inside of yourself, that is exactly how I used to feel. I used to be in absolute turmoil internally. And like you said, no one would know because I wouldn't portray that on the outside. But for me now, I see that, that was my ego leading in terms of
Ah,
like projecting this sense of having it all together. And when I
mm,
didn't feel that way internally, for me, I would say I was almost living a lie. It was a mask I was
mhm,
putting on. So,
right.
having to come inwards and do that work of the self healing and self-kindness, as you said, that is fundamentally probably what's changed my life, really. The
Mm,
healing work is that, right? Is to
yeah.
be kind to yourself and give yourself the love that I guess you've been suppressing for yourself the whole
Mhm,
time. But I'd
yeah.
love to know, well, about your story, really, Cari, like how you got into doing this work, what your maybe upbringing was like that's led you to become the woman that you are today. I'm just going to give you the floor.
Okay. Oh, the story. There's lots of elements, as with everybody. There's many layers to my story. I feel like some of it starts, yeah, when I was little, and for whatever reason, I was compelled to sit with someone when they were having a hard time. Like I just felt drawn to be there, to be with them in that, not like have all the answers or anything, but um some of my earliest memories are doing that, and it feels like, I guess, kind of a calling or something. And so even though I've done tons of different work over the years, I've done forestry, I was a firefighter for a while, I've done lots of different things, but somehow that piece of being with someone in times of challenge has carried through everything. So it wasn't until I actually, when I was a new mom, I just about got taken out by my own inner negativity. It got so loud, deafening, and I couldn't battle past it anymore. And so I really needed to get help, and I got some really good support, and I realized, like you with your journey, how powerful it is, this work and supporting people in doing that. So I went back to school and I wanted to be, I thought maybe psychologist, I wasn't sure. And then I realized, I love coaching because it's action focused and you can meet people where they're at and just go from there. And I've built, it's been 8 years now, and I've I keep building my skills. I mean, the learning never stops. So, yeah, and I think the self-kindness focus has come over the years because I've watched with my clients what has the most impact. What is the one that they can grab on and really do something with? And self-love is too far. It's too far to reach. Like when you're battling almost self-loathing inside, to say, "Oh, you should just love yourself," or it's like, yeah, no, that's that's not gonna happen, right? And self-compassion even is absolutely integral to what I do, but for a lot of people that kind of gets them up in their head and they're like, "Okay, compassion, compassion. What kind of concept is that I'm trying to connect to?" But kindness, we can reach that. We can touch it. We give it to other people every day. So learning to turn it to ourselves, it's a little more attainable, and it's something that somebody can really grab and make their own. So that has made the most sense. And it's always evolving, but I mean, I'm always guided by what the client is trending towards. It just, that is the theme that has come out the most strongly over the years.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I mean, a firefighter, wow. I mean, throw that in there for diversity. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think that, you hit a really key point there, which I find with so many women is that turning point when their life transforms going into motherhood, and almost you lose that sense of identity that you thought of who you were before. And then I guess that's where, let's say, the skeletons in the closet start to come out, and you have to address them, or you keep
Yeah.
suppressing them, and then you create another perpetual
Mm,
cycle, right? So that was such an important part there. And it's so important what you said as well about self-love being too far away. I
mhm,
completely agree with you, and I actually break self-love down into a formula with
mm,
my clients to help them understand what it is, because I personally believe that self love is self acceptance plus
mm,
self respect. And I'm like, if I
mm,
break that apart, then it takes
right.
away the fluffiness of love
Yeah.
yourself, and I
Right.
try and give those little tools to kind of help them
Yeah.
find it. But I'm guessing, almost like my work, that your work is more grittier than what it sounds, like as in, like we say, self kindness and self
Right.
compassion, but actually it's like the stepping stones, isn't it, in the in between. And I
Yeah.
think that that's so powerful because, yeah, like I said at the beginning, I was so unaware that I was talking to myself the way
Mhm,
I was. And, my
mhm,
first step for anyone on their journey is gain self-awareness
yeah.
to see where you're thinking and how your patterns are and all of those things. But I will delve more into that in a moment. I just have a question for you that's outside of the box, because this is how my
Yeah.
energy works. But do you do anything to do with spirituality yourself?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
you
I have been a practicing Buddhist actually since I was in my last year of high school. And ever since, it just has been the practice that feels most aligned with how I naturally think and operate. And I have a degree in religious studies and philosophy with a focus on Buddhism. So I've done a lot of practice and study. Um, and it comes into my work, but not in a religious way, more in like,
Mm.
here's a really great tool. Or, I mean, Buddhism is all about understanding how our minds work and how we can kind of create our own suffering, and
Yeah.
then the ways to work past that. So, plus, there's something there in Buddhism, in most Eastern traditions, about our interconnectedness as people.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
to me has always formed a huge part of how I see other people, how I see myself in relation to them, the power of our words and our thoughts and our intentions out and affects everyone. So yeah, that's definitely, I am, yeah, spiritual without being dogmatic, I guess is.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. And I could feel that from your tone, your energy. I can just see
Mm.
that. And I actually think that you are like a walking angel. I don't know if you realize that or not, but I really get that energy
Mm.
from you, that anyone that gets to be in your presence probably instantly feels calm. I wouldn't be
Mm.
surprised if you've been told that before, because you
Yes, I have.
definitely have. Yeah, you're definitely
Yeah.
an angel, Carrie. I'm sorry, but you are.
Well, I've
I
got
can
the
feel.
I've got the wings, right?
Yeah, no, well, I think even before though, when we had our chat before we did the call
Yeah.
before in the past, I think I felt that from you then as well. So
Oh.
yeah, just thought that was important to share for any potential
Mm.
clients that are waiting on the fence for you. She's an angel, guys, just saying.
Oh. Thank you
But
so much,
no,
Sherisse.
you're welcome. I just say how I see it. But I would love to know kind of how for you in your life,
Mm.
when I know you said about that moment when you'd had your child and that was the first thing and you decided to go into this, but really where the key pivotal moment was in your life where you gave yourself that permission to be different, change the version of you are now, that permission to shine.
Mm. Gosh. I don't know if I can think of the first moment, but I can think of a moment.
Mm.
And I'll just go with the first one that comes to my head. So I'm divorced, um, and we're very amicable and everything. It's been a few years now, but for a long time in the marriage, I was sure that it was my own lack of work, my own shortcomings that were making the marriage not work. So I just kept working and working and trying harder and feeling guilty that somehow I couldn't be enough to make the marriage work or something. And then and so it was a kind of inner negativity, right, that I was living under in my marriage. And then I remember one day I was out, was I shoveling the walk or something outside, and this voice came in from somewhere, I don't know where, and it was like in this like a New York accent or something. I don't know why. You know how they come in different voices sometimes? And I was thinking about, how I was being hard on myself about how the marriage, it wasn't working and I couldn't seem to make it work. And the voice was like, you know, you're not a criminal for for it not working. Like it doesn't make you a criminal that this isn't the marriage you're supposed to stay in, kind of thing. And it just struck me. I was like, wow, I had actually been making myself feel like I'd been keeping myself in a way kind of imprisoned by this effort to be something other than what I naturally was able to be. And also asking him to be something probably that he wasn't able to be. So this release from the burden of having to be something other than my natural self was like a point of permission where it was like, oh, I can just be what I am and know that I've done everything within my capability and even beyond, and probably also for him, and maybe we could just be our true selves and see where that leads us, right? And I think it's in some ways it's that moment of permission for myself and also for him that allowed us to move through the process of changing our relationship to and come to a point where we're friends now. We're what we're supposed to be to each other because of that point of of permission, I guess. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And I think that so many people listening will resonate with that conflict of, do I stay? Do I try and make this work? Do I shapeshift myself and or get caught
Mm,
up in their own expectations of what they want their partner to be and then be frustrated that they're not meeting it? I think that's such an important part of life that, unfortunately a lot of people do face. So I think that's a really amazing example for so many people that will relate to that. And I
mm.
also would love to know, what do you think that voice was?
Ah, so I don't totally know. If I was to guess, like I don't have any strong belief about what the voice is, or I mean, if I were to guess, I think we have access to wisdom within us and
Mm,
connected to the wisdom around us that we don't really realize is there.
mm,
And sometimes it just comes in, that wisdom that we all have access to, but we don't know it. It just comes in. And
yeah.
if you start to trust it and make space for it, it will come in more. So I
Mm,
can't say that it was totally my own inner voice or like the wisdom of the universe or the combination. To me, the pinpointing of it actually doesn't really matter. It's the clarity
yeah.
and the trust that I give it of like, ah, yes, thank you. I trust that. I feel it as it's smarter than this. I know that for sure.
Mm, yeah.
That our brain is like, it's smart, but it's limited. Our brain is quite limited in some ways. Whereas that other wisdom, it's bigger, it knows more, and it comes in like solidly, sort of when I
Mm.
really start to pay attention to it. So
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that understanding of it as well, because that's the truth, right? None of us ever know what it is, but I think
No.
that everyone that's on this path now has had a moment like that. And I
Mm,
think that the permission, where I talk about this permission to shine, that could just be your knowing and your truth. But those little moments, I remember when it was the lockdown and I had to change careers. I started going through my
oh,
childhood trauma. And I
yeah.
remember asking myself in my own mind,
Mm,
well, what am I here to do if I'm not here to dance? And that
mm,
voice that I heard was to inspire. And like you
mm.
said, it was so clear. I was like, oh my gosh, like what the hell? Like I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I know the exact voice you're talking about. And I believe now that was like my higher self, like we're talking
Mm,
about, like our soul is this big energy field that connects with everything. And I just think that, my higher self, or, whether it be guides or a channel, whatever it is,
mm,
it was that clear, just that
mm.
seed of intention that planted this whole pathway that I'm in now. And I think for
Yeah.
you, probably the same thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you've managed to sow a bed of a garden of these intentions to create this pathway and this life that you're now living, which is so incredibly beautiful. I'd
Same
love
for
to know
you.
that.
I think that's amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I would love to know, maybe even in your journey of like becoming who you are now, or, even something you face even now, like what is
Yeah.
the challenge that you find that you are having to revisit to overcome again? Because we all have them, right? And I think that it's so great for my listeners to, and obviously whoever's listening on your end as well, to hear that, to become these versions of ourselves, it
Mhm.
involves a continuous walking path. You don't just
Oh, yeah.
ascend into
Mm.
a
Mhm.
lightened version of yourself. It's
Mhm.
a constant journey. So I'd love you to share what that looks like on your end.
Mhm. Yeah, there's so many layers to the constant journey. Um, the one that comes up for me today, I think, is my relationship to my body. You know, like so many women, girls and women, when I was younger, I'm not a small framed person, and so there was this feeling of always being too big. I was just always too much, too big. Like my personality is quiet, so that helped me feel not too big, but then my body was too big. And so going through a big journey of acceptance and permission to for my body to be exactly what it wants to be when it is enjoying itself the most, right? Has taken a long time, and I've been really, really happy and healthy with my body for a long time, but it still happens where I'll have a moment, or I'll think about oh, a certain picture that was taken of me or something, and I'll be like, oh God, look at how big my thighs are or something, like, and and it can it can get in there and have that same souring, minimizing negative effect on my sense of self for just a little while. But because I've practiced so much awareness, as you say, and so much kindness, I notice that feeling of like the shrinking inside kind of, and I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where am I at right now? Where's my head at? Or my favorite question is, what is my brain trying to tell me about me right now? What is it trying to say? Oh, it's trying to say that, like, you know, I'm not going to be successful because I'm never going to be one of those like petite women or something. It's like, wow, it's so mean. It's so mean. And it's incredible how it can still try to come back to life and take over my state of mind, after so many years of really working on loving and supporting my body as it is. So that work is ongoing, and I can't help but think that it's also connected to the society we live in, that the forces that encourage that sort of always seeing this as a problem that I should focus all my energy on fixing instead of maybe doing things that are more meaningful, right? That's part of why that battle persists,
Mm.
but I take ownership for how it shows up, and I deal with it. I don't let it take over or take me down anymore.
No, I love that so much, and I love your just rawness, but in such a um, compassionate way. I think that that's just how you maneuver life, and I think I love the fact that every point you've bring up is so relatable. I think to
Mhm.
so many women, it's so powerful. Like I'm really glad that I've got to have you in this space with me, Carrie, because I really understand where you're at, and I know so many women are in the same space, like I was the same in terms of feeling like the way I looked was such a obstacle for me, and even now, like, I'm having issues with my skin and breaking out, and I just got to
Mm,
the point where I now just accept it, and
mhm.
that's taken quite a lot of time, but I'm just in this space of being like, if I worry about how much I can control it, then I
Mm,
end up perpetuating more of a cycle. So it's just
mm,
better to just be like,
yeah,
yep, I'm flaring up right now. That is just the way it is, and letting it go. And I think
yeah.
even down to, being a dancer, my body being in the spotlight, I really understand what you're saying, because that was it, like
Mm,
when I was a dancer, these were things I was thinking about all the time. Like, am I the right
yeah.
size? Do I look good in that outfit? Do I
Mm.
look chubby? Like, all these little things, because again, like what looks chubby to me will look completely different to
Oh,
someone else. But
yeah,
our internal dialogue and our internal perception is what
yeah.
navigates us, isn't it? Like that's
That's
what
right.
sets the course for everything that we do.
Yeah.
And it really is about coming down to, what we've both been speaking about, that compassion for ourselves and that kindness, and
Mm,
also that acceptance piece, because this is the thing, we can spend our whole lives trying to fit a mold or a box to what society wants us to be,
mm,
or we can say,
yep.
screw that, I'm just going to be me now, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to celebrate it, and whoever else wants to celebrate with me can join me
Hmm.
here, because I don't believe that beauty has one look. I think that
No.
beauty is a very ever flowing open thing, and I much like to feel that beauty is something that everyone has. And, when you own that for yourself, that's what activates it more than ever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When it's coming from deep within, that sense of um just appreciation for yourself, and you're in that energy of, I just want to be more of what I am. And then that shines through. It's a beauty that um the commercial or external version of beauty, it can't even get close to. It tries.
Mm,
It tries really hard, but it can't. And yeah, I so agree with you, that this limited definitions of beauty, it's such a it's such a trap, because the definitions of beauty that are coming at us, they're ever shifting, and so you can never actually fully meet it. So it's
mm,
this moving target that you can spend your entire life's energy trying to meet,
yeah.
when you're missing the point of true beauty, which is to just settle in to
Mm,
what's already inside of you, and feed it and nurture it, and let it come out however it wants to come out.
yeah, definitely. And I think that, societally, as we're talking about, like women in particularly have really the focus is always about what we look like, isn't it? And I think that's why it's
Mhm,
so hard for us as women to,
mhm.
let go of that external pressure, because
Yeah.
everywhere you go, they're saying, oh, wear this because it makes you look thinner, or contour your face because it gives you cheekbones. It's everywhere you go. And it's really,
Everywhere.
really and truly, I think that you have to, look at yourself through new eyes, almost as in, I always like to say, like, what would your best friend say about you? What would your
Yes. Oh, that's a
partner
great
say
one.
about you? It's like,
Yeah.
when they look at you, what do they see? And then
Yeah.
try and see that in yourself. Because
Mm.
I remember, I'm growing up in an area that wasn't diverse culturally, and always
Mm.
being the odd one out. And I remember, people used to say to me, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and I just wouldn't believe them. I was like,
Uh-huh.
no, no, because I'd always grown up being the weird brown girl, I like to say, but
Uh,
no one actually thought I was a weird brown girl. I thought I was a weird brown girl.
right.
And when I started to, dive into this work just really loosely in my early 20s, I was performing at that time, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm not what I think I am of myself. And even then I had body dysmorphia, and it's just,
Mm.
being aware starts to
Mhm.
unravel these patterns that we created for ourselves. Because that's what, when I have either friends or people I know, or further out people. So, say people on Facebook that I haven't spoken to for like 20 years, and I
Yeah.
see that they've
Yeah.
been diagnosed with body dysmorphia. I'm like, that
Mm.
really is a mental like situation rather than a physical one. There's nothing physical
100%.
about that. It's a mental understanding of yourself. And that's really what I've tried to share in such a soft way, because in the UK, our mental health systems aren't great.
Oh.
And I think that more than ever, we need people that do what we do to be able to shine a light on these things, to give
Mhm.
people their power back. Like, for
Yeah.
me, it's that
Yeah.
understanding that, we create the reality we see, like you said, reflect on the Buddhism practice. It's that understanding, isn't it? We create our own suffering. So, even the body dysmorphia, it's like we are seeing a different version of ourselves. It's like the reverse of the film Shallow Hal. It's like you see this big
Right.
whale looking back at you in the mirror, and it's like, that's not there. Pat yourself down and, just sit for a minute and be like, wow. And I know
Mm.
as well for a fact that hormones play a massive part in that for women as well. Because I
True.
see that in myself, maybe the 1 week a month, I'll look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh gosh, I look a bit puffy. And I'm like, there we go, hormones,
Right.
and it's just having that awareness
Yep.
tuned in to
Yep.
be like, that's what that is. It's not, I haven't put on 4 pounds. It's just that. And even if I did, would it take away my worth? Am I allowed
Right.
to put on 4 pounds?
Right.
Yes, I am. Eat
Yep.
the cake, but obviously don't obsess about the cake. And that's the key, right? Isn't it? It's like, enjoy everything
Yeah.
in moderation, all of it,
Mm.
even excitement and the most wonderful things. If you felt like that all the time, you wouldn't appreciate it. That's why we're supposed to ebb and flow, right?
So true. Yeah. It's it's this constant force. We're being pulled out of ourselves. We're encouraged to only associate with what's on the outside, with
Mm,
what other people might see. And and when we can notice that, like bring awareness to it and then turn it inwards and say, okay, okay, yeah, I might be seen like this, I might be perceived this way because of my hair or the size of my butt or whatever, right? But what do I know is true about who I am? Like
Mm,
really true. Like I often have folks find the facts of who you have been in this world.
mm,
Like, you said, um, how do my friends see me? When you have a friend that says, you're always there when I need someone. That is a fact. That is a fact about who you are in this world. That is way more solid than my butt is the society's version of a good size right now or not. Right?
mm.
Because that's always changing. That's not actually
Yeah,
factual. It's just opinion. It's just fashion that's shifting all the time. But when you go in, you're like, yeah, I am a person who when someone in my life needs support, I'm there or whatever. I'm a person that like I really do my best at work. Like I'm
mm,
not perfect or whatever, but I give it my best. That is a fact about who you are. And if you sink into that fact and feel how good and solid it is, that can actually start to ease the focus on the outside, which
yeah.
ironically then changes the outside.
Mm,
When we care about ourselves from a deep level, we naturally tend to take care of our bodies more, but
mm.
not from a place of I'm fixing a problem, just from a place of like, this body, it deserves care. And so I'm gonna give it what it needs, you know?
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
definitely. 100% that. And I think all of that's so true in everything that I teach as well. Like it's like when we can inner stand ourselves, that's when, that mirror of our internal world starts to project outwardly. So when I say to people that, clients that come into my world and I'm saying to them about, seeing the good in themselves, I'm like, maybe you can start to give a genuine compliment out and then you'll start
Mhm,
to see it more in yourself. And
mhm,
equally, I believe that because I am more comfortable in myself, well, I am the most comfortable in myself I've ever been in my life. And I would say I fully love myself now. I throw compliments out all of the time. And I think it makes some people uncomfortable because they're not used to being
right.
shown that much kindness. But I think for me, that's the ripple that I want to create is that I gave
Mhm,
someone a compliment today. So then they'll give someone else a compliment and they'll give someone else a compliment. But more so, when we look for the good in people, we see it back. And I think it
mhm,
comes back, I think there's
mhm.
just so many different beautiful teachings, I guess, from Buddhism as well. Most importantly, as well, that comes around, doesn't it? But also I just think it's the just the polarity of life, isn't it? Like I think it's so important for everyone to understand as well on this that we don't want to eradicate any part of us. So, if there is a moment where we do feel fear or we're criticizing ourselves,
Mm,
it's not saying that's bad, you're being bad, you shouldn't do
right.
that. It's just it's coming up for a reason, and I think you mentioned it as well for yourself that it's showing a lot, shining a light on something, but because you have the
Mhm,
practices to get yourself out of it and or to learn from it, that's
mhm,
almost like a flashing light, isn't it? To be like, look at this for a moment, and then you can look and you can say, I see it, it's cool, I let
mhm,
it go now. Because I
mhm,
I think that the first stages of my healing journey, I was really trying to eradicate this masculine energy that I'd lived through my whole life.
mhm,
And I think the more I began to heal and dive deeper into this understanding, I could see that I need both. I need to
yeah,
have the masculine and feminine together. I need to ebb and flow between
yeah.
states of being. And even now for myself, when you spoke about your obstacles that come up for you all the time, I have that too. And in my own way, of just wanting to go into that hyper masculine doing all the time to get
Mm,
myself out of things, like whenever I
mm,
feel like a moment of lack, it like
mm,
triggers an old cycle, and I'm like, this is teaching me to be humble, to do things
Mm.
from the ground up, because each time I do that, I'm creating more of a solid foundation. And every time I fall, I'm nowhere
Mm.
near falling to the bottom of the stairs anymore. It's just maybe one or
Right,
two.
right.
But that's important, isn't it? You know, it's so important that we shine a light on that, as well as just thinking we have to be this shiny thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have to be a mix. I think that's the nature of the human condition is to, we literally only learn by making mistakes.
Mm,
I wish it
absolutely.
wasn't that way, but it really is. We have to push the level for ourselves. We have to try things that we're not ready for. Um we have to move past obstacles and then go too far and have to figure our way back. And I think too in this journey of being kinder to ourselves, it's never just a straight line forward. It's always a learning in layers. And
Mm,
I mean, yeah, I was in an abusive relationship in my 20s, and I can still occasionally have a small moment of being triggered by something that brings back what I struggled with through that relationship. Even though that, like, I'm a long ways from my 20s. So, but nonetheless, because and I rather than seeing it as a moment of like, God, I'm still dealing with this, like, I'm still working through this, how can I be so weak or something? Instead of that, I think, there's a little bit of that layer that's
mm,
come back. There's a little bit more learning for me to do on that to keep moving forward. So
yeah.
so even in the moments of fragility, um, bringing that bit of kindness and compassion is so helpful to the progress. Because when you apply judgment, well, then you actually do send yourself backwards.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful and so true. I think even for myself, with, I've had a lot of people in my life pass away, and that happened at a young
Mhm,
age for me.
mhm,
And sometimes I find myself really like missing those
mhm.
people, and I get caught in that feeling of, why did everyone I love have to die? Like, what
Mhm.
this sad cycle. And I sit in that and I'm like, that's just okay for you to feel that way, because it has been hard,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that you are loved any less. And in fact, in those moments, I have to love myself a bit harder and remind
Mhm.
myself that this is why the things have to be that way. And I actually imagine my life now with those people in it. And I know I wouldn't be this version of me now that had to become this version of me to teach these teachings. So it's just really important that we highlight that, because I think with the work that we both do, we do always focus on the transformation, but it's that acknowledgement of the fact that this is always ebbing and flowing, I think is
Yeah.
just so important. But I'd love for you to kind of share, like maybe an example of like maybe the first time someone comes to you, and like what your maybe top three things of advice or
Mm.
practices that you share.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to say the advice that I would give to anybody because you know how it is. Every person um, brings their own thing. But you mentioned it actually, which I totally agree with, is that practice of awareness. So if there was one thing that's probably most consistent because it's the most powerful starting point, it's the don't change anything. Don't feel like you're fixing a problem yet. Just start to notice. Just start to notice the relationship between, what's happening in your life and then what your mind is telling you, particularly what your mind is telling you about you. And just start to notice it, write it down if you can. My brain is telling me this about me or whatever. And and um and just start there because really all progress stems from that. And then maybe if there's one other thing, um, I guess it's like look to the facts of who you are. Everybody has them. Everybody has facts about who they are, and we're so busy being critical of ourselves. We're pushed past the facts, and we're always looking at what we're not, what we
Mm.
haven't achieved yet, and everything. So if you explore those are two things that there's really no downside,
Yeah.
right? That although the acknowledgement one, I don't know if you remember when you first started doing your work, it can feel like you're going a little cuckoo because when you really become aware of how your mind talks to you, it's like, oh my God, like it's so powerful and it's so constant and it changes and it like gets sneaky and like it's
Absolutely. Even now, I think it's still sneaky. I'm like, hey, that wasn't where I was going. How did we end up on that? But that is just, I think, such a beautiful part of our humanness that we get to see. Like when you're
yeah.
aware of your thoughts, like the expansiveness of where they go, your
Mm,
imagination, the
mm,
daydreams. Like I know for me, I can start thinking about someone's birthday and then think about a cake that I had, and then it takes me to a time where I had that
mm,
cake again, and then it makes me think of certain people, and then I end up spiraling down this circle. I was like, whoa, we didn't need to go there. The next thing I know, I'm thinking about the ex I had 7 years ago, and it's just like, wow, this crazy life that we live. But I think most importantly, it's the enjoying this process, especially when you embark on this journey of
mm,
self-discovery for both of our clients or whoever is listening. It's like there is such wonder in this. And if you can take that part,
right.
yes, it feels different and it
Mm,
may feel challenging. It won't feel challenging to everyone. But if you go in with this just eagerness to explore and see what's
mm,
possible, that
mm,
makes this journey so beautiful. And there's moments now for me where, around my period, for example, where my hormones kick in and then I
mhm,
start to think
mhm.
negatively because, again, that's something I can't control. My hormones are something I have no control over,
Yeah.
but I observe them and I
Mm.
laugh. I laugh at the anger that wants to come out. I laugh at the road rage. I laugh at my insult at myself. And I'm like, that's not me. That is not me. And actually, something funny that I do with my clients, and actually, something I do on my webinars that I do for free sometimes is I tell them to give their sabotaging thoughts or negative thoughts, give them a name. So give
Yeah.
them a really funny name like
Mm,
Gertrude or like, I don't know,
mm.
whatever. And then that tells them every time that if
Yeah.
Gertrude's kicking off, I'm like, be quiet, Gertrude. And then it just changes the whole focus. Then we start to laugh at it. It makes it
Yeah.
fun. And it takes a little bit of that pressure off of
Mm,
ourselves, because that's really it, isn't it? I think a lot of us have endured so much, and whether, for me, trauma is relative and we'll all feel hardship at some point in our lives. But I think no matter what you've been through in your life, we all go through these same cycles. And I think that's the compassion piece for everyone, is knowing that everyone is fighting a battle within themselves. So
mm,
if we can enjoy this journey as much as possible, that for me really is the epitome of life. Because when you get to the point that you've been working towards, and I felt like that even in my dance career, I was working so hard to achieve these big jobs, and when I finally got them,
mm,
it didn't feel like anything. And that's
mm,
why I really want everyone to enjoy the process, because you don't realize that you're standing on the top of a mountain more often than
mm,
not. And I think that it's all about the climb, isn't it? Every stage.
mm. Yeah, wow, that is so powerful to acknowledge that and learn from it rather than be like, God, I worked so hard to get here and now I can't feel the joy of it. Like that sucks. Like rather than that to
Mm,
be like, oh, that's because the joy is in the journey. And
mm,
and we're always on a journey. Whether we're near the top or just starting out. Yeah, yeah.
mm.
I love that. Yeah,
And
and
then I
it
think,
brings a lightness to this, which is so helpful.
yeah, and I was just going to say as well, like often when you get to the top of the mountain, you're at the bottom of the next one as well. So this is what we mean, right? With the journey, you keep going, you just keep going, just keep climbing. But yeah, it's one beautiful ride, and I think if we embrace that, that is just the power, right? But I'd
Yeah.
love for you to be able to share where people can find you if they want to work with you, where they can get to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So website is a great place to start. It's cariframe.com, CARI frame.com. And then on the social media is Instagram, Facebook. It's the Self-Kindness Coach. So
I love
easy to
that.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so nice. And you know, I will say I've had 2 conversations with you now, and I definitely feel like you exude kindness. It's just everything that you are. So I know that you are doing exactly what you came here to do on this incarnation in this timeline. So thank you for, yeah, just being you, Cari. And just to close out, I love to do a soul to soul message. So either based on the conversation, or maybe something you would have said to yourself before, or even to a client, whoever's listening, something that you feel like needs to be shared in your heart right now.
Mm. Let's see. The one that's coming up is you're not alone. No matter how it feels, what you're struggling with, you're never fully alone. We're all connected, and there is someone when you reach forward who will reach back.
Mm.
And you deserve connection, and you're built for it. So, whatever the struggle is, not only are you connected to everybody, but there are also lots of people who are also struggling and who would receive support from you if you reached out towards them. Look for them.
That's so true. And I definitely felt very alone throughout most of my life. And I can absolutely second everything you said there, because when we give ourselves that permission to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
that vulnerability meets more people that need to hear what you have to say. And yeah, I guess this is the whole reason why I started the podcast, really, is that when you give yourself the permission to shine, you don't realize how many people are inspired by your light.
Mm.
So thank you so much, Cari, for joining me. And I'll pop
Thank you,
all of
Sherisse.
Cari's details in the notes. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, and you are such a light of inspiration. I'm so grateful to have been here with you.
Oh, thank you. The feeling is so mutual.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, follow, and share with someone that you know would benefit. If you're looking to dive in deeper to becoming your most unapologetic, most authentic, shining self, please do head to my website and join my newsletter, where you will find out about all of my upcoming events and speaking opportunities and all of the things that I have going on. And also, if you would like to work with me, please do drop me a DM on any of my socials or through my website. Love and light.